Amid the harsh lands of Bang Revelia, Ebony struggles under the scheming of her stepmother and the disdain of the villagers. One dark night by a stream, a mermaid appeared and bestowed upon her the enchanted razor comb. From that moment, destiny crashed into Ebony like a raging storm. It made her the center of attention for Prince Cairo, yet it also stirred envy, conspiracies, and unforeseen curses. All are poised to drag her down into the abyss. Will Ebony's steadfast heart be strong enough to overcome it all? Are you ready to explore this magical journey with African Tales? Don't forget to subscribe to the African Tales channel. Once upon a time, in the fertile lands of Bang Revelia, there was a peaceful hamlet called Norfolk Hills. Like a scene from an ancient painting, this small village nestled beside a meandering stream that flowed through vast emerald fields. The locals were bound to the soil, agriculture, and the art of weaving, exchanging harvests with neighboring villages while living in friendly harmony beneath the warm embrace of the sun. Every dawn, as the first rays of sunlight touched the water's surface, the entire stream would shimmer as though sprinkled with an invisible layer of gold dust. In a modest wooden cottage at the edge of the village, young Ebony had to rise before the roosters crowed. Her daily routine began with grinding corn, preparing vegetables, or carrying water for cooking. This cycle repeated every day, like an endless, unbroken loop. The reason was that her biological mother had passed away when she was too young to understand the true meaning of a mother's love. And her father, too, had left this world only a few years later. Ebony was taken in by Mama Bernice, the strict stepmother, yet genuine affection never blossomed from the woman's heart. Mama Bernice reserved every kindness for her own two daughters, Keisha and Tasha. These sisters, adorned in vibrant dresses and endowed with countless privileges, were never tasked with any hard labor. Meanwhile, Ebony had to bear nearly every responsibility at home, from the simplest chores like mopping the floor to the back-breaking work of chopping firewood, grinding grain, and hauling water. On that fateful morning, the skies over Norfolk Hills were bluer than usual. A gentle breeze wafted from the grove of willow trees across the fields, carrying a light moisture with it. Yet Ebony's soul felt weighed down, for she knew she would never have the opportunity to wear a beautiful dress to the town square, where the villagers eagerly anticipated the arrival of a distinguished guest, Prince Cairo of the Fort Chester region. It was said that the prince roamed far and wide, searching for someone worthy to share the reins of his kingdom. It seemed as if every maiden in the village busied herself polishing her dresses, adorning her face and body, all in the hope of catching his eye. Meanwhile, Ebony was dressed only in an old, coarse fabric garment, a far cry from the dreams of joy and hope that others so easily embraced. Inwardly, she whispered to herself, "What right did a lowly daughter like me have to step out into that world?" With a sharp tone, Mama Bernice quickly reminded Ebony of her duty, to carry a large water jar over the hill to the far-off stream and fetch water. Mama Bernice cared not for the chattering rumours of Prince Cairo, nor the infectious excitement that filled the village. She only knew that Ebony was a useful tool, someone who must toil relentlessly until utterly exhausted. Biting her lip and tightly binding the kerchief around her waist, Ebony set off, her steps heavy, yet resolute. The wind whipped through her sleek black hair, tossing a few curly locks into the air. Along the dusty path, she listened as the laughter of the girls, who were already striding toward the center of the village, rang out. They chattered excitedly about how they would present themselves before the prince, flaunting their necklaces, bracelets, and sumptuous silk scarves. The more she listened, the more numb her heart became, for she knew she could only ever imagine that moment in secret. Upon reaching the stream's edge, she knelt down and silently lowered the jar into the clear, cool water. The gentle murmur of the water caressed her mind, momentarily making her forget the daily burdens that weighed her down. She sighed, thinking that if she could finish her task early, she would return home and hide away from all the clamour and excitement that everyone else seemed to relish. But fate, it seemed, had an unexpected twist in store. From within the flowing water, A cool current brushed against Ebony's neck. She looked up and caught a glimpse of a faint, wavering light that danced amid the stream's flow. As her eyes adjusted, she was astonished to behold a mystical creature, a being half human, half fish, with flowing curly hair and eyes brimming with the melancholy of hidden ocean secrets. No one had ever spoken of the existence of a mermaid in Norfolk Hills. Yet now, this fantasy manifested more vividly than anything in Ebony's life. The mermaid moved toward her, her lips parting as if to impart a message. Suddenly, in one graceful motion, the mermaid swept her arm, creating enchanting whirlpools in the water, and pressed into Ebony's hand a shimmering enchanted comb. Everything transpired too quickly, like a waking daydream. With hesitant hands, Ebony accepted the comb, her heart pounding rapidly in her chest. A soft, whispering message, like the murmur of the wind, reached her ears. This comb is a blessing. Guard it well, and never lose faith in yourself, Ebony walked slowly along the red dirt road, leading to Aunt Harriet's little shack, her heart still abuzz with the wondrous experience of meeting the mermaid that morning. The late afternoon sunlight was fading, draping Norfolk Hills in a shimmering golden glow that seeped through the dense clusters of trees. A gentle breeze carried the familiar scent of herbs, planted in abundance by Aunt Harriet around her shack to help the villagers when they fell ill. Ebony recalled Mama Bernice's scolding before she left home, yet the weight of everyday reproaches no longer burdened her as before. She now carried a strange secret within her, urging her to seek out the only person in the village capable of unraveling such mysteries. Aunt Harriet's shack was tucked away behind an ancient tree canopy, its roof made of dry grass and willow branches, simple in appearance, yet exuding a warm coziness. Through the narrow window, Ebony could see the flickering flame of an oil lamp casting its light upon a shelf of old books. Though Aunt Harriet was advanced in years, she possessed a profound wisdom and ears always ready to listen to any story, no matter how unusual. Ebony gently pushed open the door and took a deep breath to steady herself. The aroma of dried vetiver leaves, licorice, and several other blended roots filled the space, evoking an indescribable sense of relief. In that atmosphere, she felt a rare peace, so different from the tense air of her stepmother's house. Aunt Harriet was sitting on a wooden stool and turned to face Ebony as soon as she heard the timid footsteps approaching. Observing the restlessness in Ebony's eyes, the old woman instantly knew something truly important was afoot. In a near whisper, Ebony carefully recounted her entire experience by the stream, from the moment she knelt to fetch water to the magical instant when the mermaid bestowed upon her the sparkling enchanted comb. Aunt Harriet's eyes shifted through a range of expressions: curiosity, astonishment, and finally solemnity, as if every word spoken by Ebony resonated with a long-guarded belief deep within her. The little shack was sparsely furnished, save for a large wooden chest at its center, so old that the peeling paint betrayed its age. With careful hands, Aunt Harriet opened the chest and retrieved a thick, yellowed sheepskin-bound book, no doubt an heirloom passed down through generations. Gently she turned its pages, slowly scanning the looping black script, as if seeking some omen. Ebony stood by, her hands unconsciously clasping together, half hopeful and half fearful. At last, Aunt Harriet's finger paused on a faded passage. She recited each word in a measured, deliberate tone, emphasizing, "When the water's turn bestows the enchanted comb, it is also the moment when the fate of a poor girl shall shine forth. Yet only if her heart holds steadfast to her faith will the magic reach its fullest fruition." The passage rang out in the small shack, carrying the echo of a distant past. Suddenly, Ebony's chest swelled with a strange feeling, a mixture of fear and joy. Quickly, Aunt Harriet pressed the sheepskin book into Ebony's arms, as if wanting her to absorb the very spiritual energy of the ancient text. Through the rough texture of the leather, Ebony felt an uncanny warmth, much like the combined energy of countless generations of women in her family, gathered and left behind in this very relic. She trembled softly, wondering whether her future was entirely predetermined by fate, or if she alone must battle to seize the opportunity that the prophecy had just hinted at. Noticing Ebony's confusion, Aunt Harriet placed her wrinkled hand on her shoulder, her voice softening as she said, "Sometimes, the emissary of the ocean comes not only to help, but also to test you. Keep that enchanted comb safe, my dear, for no one can predict what upheavals may arise when fate begins to stir." Ebony could feel the warmth of genuine affection hidden behind the old woman's cautionary words. Aunt Harriet's gentle gaze regarded her, as though she were a cherished niece, rather than merely a neighbour's child. In that brief moment, Ebony realised she was not alone on this journey. Though she did not yet know the challenges that lay ahead, at least she had a place of solace to which she could return when her faith wavered. Thanking Aunt Harriet with a soft embrace, Ebony carefully placed the sheepskin book back into the old chest and bowed her head in farewell. The old woman watched until Ebony stepped out of the shack, her silhouette cast long on the ground by the dying light of the afternoon. Outside, the sky began its transformation into twilight, with vivid ribbons of red and orange clouds swirling high above. Ebony walked slowly back to the village, carrying with her a mix of worry and hope. She felt as though she were treading a fragile bridge between two worlds, the stark reality of everyday life and the mysterious, enchanting realm woven through Anstey. The brilliant golden light of a new day enveloped the central square of Norfolk Hills, where a throng of people eagerly awaited the arrival of Prince Cairo. The steady beating of drums merged with the villagers' cheers, creating an atmosphere of rare and unbridled excitement. Multicoloured flags billowed atop tall wooden poles, resembling fragments of a rainbow that adorned the space. The village elder, Old Amos, stepped forward before the crowd, ready to welcome the esteemed guest and swelling with pride that this humble little village had finally caught the royal eye. Before long, a procession of horses and carriages appeared at the head of the street. The crowd burst into resounding applause as all eyes followed Prince Cairo, resplendent in a deep blue royal attire, accented with exquisite golden patterns. His dark bronze skin emanated a rugged charm that spoke of adventures in far-off lands. With a commanding gaze and an imposing stature, he inspired both admiration and a hint of trepidation. Some of the village girls leaned in close to whisper to one another, yearning to catch even a fleeting glance from him. Keisha and Tasha, the two daughters of Mama Bernice, were renowned in the village as ostentatious and particular young ladies. They stood out in the crowd, clad in dazzling dresses of red and purple, adorned with shimmering bead necklaces. Their eyes sparkled with a desperate longing to capture the prince's attention. For a few brief moments, Cairo's gaze brushed past them, yet his face remained composed, skillfully responding to their greetings with a courteous smile. He engaged Old Amos in conversation about the weather, the harvest yields, and plans to improve the lives of the local farmers. The atmosphere around the square grew ever more buoyant, for everyone could see that the prince was not solely concerned with superficial show, but also with the genuine stories and struggles of the villagers. Yet amid the throng of joyous onlookers, Prince Cairo appeared contemplative. Although many well-dressed girls surrounded him, waiting for a chance to showcase their loveliness or offer a graceful greeting, his concerns seemed to transcend such commonplace matters. He showed little interest in adoring glances or empty flattery. Deep in thought, he sought a person with a kind heart, someone genuine and steadfast, not merely alluring or adept at winning favour. When the sunlight finally began to filter behind the tiled roofs, the prince told Old Amos that he wished to stroll around the village on his own, to experience Norfolk Hills in its most ordinary form. For he believed that if he confined himself solely to crowded streets and ritualistic greetings, he would never truly comprehend the daily life and arduous struggles of the people. At that moment, Ebony returned from the stream beyond the hill, her shoulders slumped under the burden of a heavy water jar. Her tunic was soaked with sweat, and her breath came in hurried gasps. Yet the memory of that strange encounter with the mermaid still filled her thoughts. The vision of the glimmering fishtail and the enchanted comb that had been bestowed upon her replayed in her mind over and over, distracting her from focusing on the dusty path ahead. With every gust of wind that lifted her thin garment, a waft of earthy mingled with the dried leaf fragrance reminded her that she had left behind the cool, refreshing stream and returned to the harshness of reality. Then, around a bend beneath an ancient willow, she suddenly collided with a tall figure. The sudden impact sent her sprawling to the ground, and her water jar tipped precariously, nearly spilling its precious contents onto the earth. Her heart tightened with fear at the prospect of losing the water that Mama Bernice was so eager to have. Struggling to regain her composure, she looked up in shock to realize that she had collided with none other than Prince Cairo himself. With a courteous gesture, he bent down gracefully to help her to her feet. Noticing the tremor in her calloused hands, he inquired with a warm, deep voice, so unexpectedly gentle, a stark contrast to the aloof image many attributed to the royal. Ebony flushed with embarrassment and surprise, barely managing to lower her head as a mix of astonishment and chagrin overtook her. Stuttering through a couple of apologies, she insisted that she had simply obstructed the prince's path. Cairo chuckled broadly and reassured her that everyone had their own tasks to perform, and he was not troubled by her mistake. Lifting his gaze, he observed the weariness evident in her modest attire and the sincere kindness and an unusual inner strength that flickered in her eyes. He then inquired her name, and when he heard Ebony, he softly repeated it as if to etch it in his memory. For a moment, Ebony was at a loss for words, overwhelmed by the unexpectedness of the encounter. All she wished was to hasten away from this awkward situation before she fully grasped. Ebony returned home as the fading dusk began to yield to the deepening hues of orange-red sunset spread across the wooden house. Barely had she set down her water jar when Mama Bernice, with a sour expression, barked at her to bring the water into the kitchen for tonight's supper. In recent days, Ebony's workload seemed even heavier, or perhaps it was the multitude of thoughts swirling about her unexpected encounter with Prince Cairo earlier that morning. She wondered silently, was it merely a fleeting stroke of luck, or was she slowly slipping into an unattainable fantasy? Inside the modest house, the atmosphere was abuzz. Keisha and Tasha, Mama Bernice's two favoured daughters, laughed boisterously as they boasted about their own brief encounters with Prince Cairo at the town square. They competed eagerly to recount the details of his imposing appearance, their voices dripping with pride. Keisha confidently claimed that the prince had smiled at her, while Tasha insisted that he had nodded in a way that indicated a special interest. Each of them sought to affirm their own status, intensifying the already noisy environment. Meanwhile, as Ebony ground corn at the stove, she felt a slight pang of jealousy stir within her, for she did not belong to that lively conversation. Just as she paused for a moment, Mama Bernice shouted, reminding her to hurry. "Haven't you prepared the vegetables for tomorrow's market yet? Move it along and don't dawdle." Instantly, Ebony returned to her chores without dare to protest, knowing full well that even a minor act of defiance might condemn her to a night of backbreaking work. At that very moment, the lingering shock of her morning encounter with the prince still weighed on her, but she could share her secret with no one. Part of her feared Mama Bernice's ridicule. Another part fretted that the mysterious enchanted comb hidden in her pocket might be confiscated if her stepfamily discovered it. The kitchen, cozy with the scent of smouldering charcoal, contrasted starkly with Ebony's somber mood. She mused to herself, Prince Cairo, with his commanding presence and uncommon gentleness, Could he possibly spare even a flicker of admiration for a rustic girl whose hands are calloused from hard labour? She wasn't certain of the answer, yet the memory of his sincere gaze by the stream warmed her heart. Never before had she felt so seen, even if only for a fleeting instant. As night slowly descended, the persistent chirping of cicadas outside on the porch intermingled with the gentle rustling of dry grass in a corner of the yard. Inside, Keisha and Tasha continued their animated chatter about the prince's visit, embellishing the tale with imagined romantic scenarios and the tantalizing prospect of changing one's fate if one of them caught his eye. Neighbors dropped by, adding their own speculations, each eager to find out if one of the young village women would soon catch the golden break. Whispers spread about whether the prince had encountered an intriguing character near the stream, someone of noble birth, or perhaps a fortunate peasant. No one ever thought of Ebony. In the eyes of the villagers, she was nothing more than a shadow lurking in Mama Bernice's humble home. In stark contrast, Ebony remained rooted in the kitchen, busy arranging the vegetables neatly for the early morning market. Every so often, she would furtively retrieve the enchanted comb from her pocket and gaze at its glimmer as it caught the flickering light of the oil lamp. Its magical colours summoned memories of the mermaid's gaze by the stream, a vision both distant and elusive, yet capable of instilling a profound sense of peace. In that moment, she recalled Aunt Harriet's words, "When the water's current gifts you the enchanted comb, the fate of a poor girl will shine forth, provided that her heart never loses its faith." Time passed slowly until at last Ebony's work was done. She tidied the vegetables with careful precision, then switched off the stove and quietly withdrew to her small, dim room. Outside, the laughter and chatter of Keisha and Tasha mingled with the casual gossip of the villagers. Ebony felt no bitterness. She had long grown accustomed to being sidelined during moments of celebration. Yet tonight, unlike any other, a fragile hope intertwined itself with her aching heart. Settling into a quiet corner, she found herself lost in thought, recalling the benevolent expression on the prince's face and the soft, graceful presence of the mermaid. Exhaustion eventually drew her into sleep, carrying with it the soft murmur of the stream and the faint shimmering image of the enchanted comb. In her dreams, she saw Prince Cairo standing at the water's edge, smiling gently at her, while the mermaid flickered in and out of the gentle swells. It was all a reminder that perhaps Ebony's destiny was not confined to the drudgery of the kitchen or the harsh commands of Mama Bernice. Perhaps there was another door. The sunset fell quickly over Norfolk Hills, bathing the red wooden houses in hues of deep orange. In the ramshackle kitchen of Mama Bernice's home, the faint light left was barely enough to reveal the shadows of 3 women huddled together, whispering their schemes. A solitary candle, hastily fixed by the old hearth, flickered wildly, mirroring the simmering anger etched on their faces. Keisha and Tasha, Mama Bernice's 2 favoured daughters, were still seething over the royal envoy's invitation extended to Ebony. From the moment they heard the news, their envy flared into a quiet, bitter undercurrent, a storm of malice aimed at dragging their half-sister down into the depths. Mama Bernice, the tall, shrewd woman, folded her arms tightly across her chest and directed a steely, cold glance into empty space, as if already plotting their next move. She did not need to say much. Occasional nods and a few curt remarks were enough for her daughters to grasp her intent. Keisha, with her intricately braided black hair and tightly sealed lips, shook her head in discontent. Tasha, standing beside her, continuously ground her teeth, her eyes flashing with jealousy every time the name Ebony was mentioned. They could not accept that a girl who was relegated to serving as a housemaid could suddenly be personally chosen by the royal envoy to visit the royal palace. As voices rose in petty accusations, one saying, "Ebony is surely playing tricks," another insisting, "She's only pretending to be pitiable." Mama Bernice's voice cut through the clamour with a heavy, imperious tone. "We must snuff out this foolish fantasy from the very start. Tomorrow morning I'll have the little girl sent off to the market at dawn with the vegetables. That way, she won't have any time to prepare her appearance or fix herself up. And if, by some chance, she still manages to show up, with her ragged looks, she will only make the prince despise her further. Keisha exchanged a venomous look with Tasha, a sinister smile flickering between them as they pictured Ebony stumbling, humiliated, and being dismissed at the gates of the palace. Their triumphal glee was evident on their faces, while outside, the night swallowed the last remnants of daylight, and the wind whistled through the gaps in the walls, sounding like a mournful lament for Ebony's fate. Amid the heated plotting, no one noticed the hidden corner of the kitchen. There, amid a heap of straw set aside for kindling and bundles of corn awaiting loading onto a cart, Ebony crouched silently behind half a door, shrinking herself as small as possible. She listened intently to every word, her heart pounding so fiercely she feared they might hear even the faint sound of her rapid heartbeat. Overwhelmed by unease, she also felt a rising undercurrent of anger. She had never imagined that she could one day stand equal to Keisha and Tasha. Yet now, even this rare chance to set foot at the royal palace was being deliberately sabotaged by them. Still, her anger was tempered by fear. She knew that the authority of the house still lay firmly in Mama Bernice's hands. No matter what, she had to find a way to escape this scheme or at least avoid falling into their trap. Slowly, she reached into the frayed pocket of her old tunic, the very place where the enchanted comb, given to her by the mermaid at the stream, was hidden away. That gentle touch was like a spark, instantly summoning the memory of the mermaid's tender gaze amid the crystal water. Aunt Harriet's warning echoed in her mind. When the current of the water gifts you the enchanted comb, the fate of a poor girl will shine forth, provided she never loses her faith. Fixing her gaze on the group of scheming faces bathed in the flickering light, Ebony felt a surge of determination swell within her chest. This newborn hope might not be an act of extraordinary bravery, but it was enough for her to swallow her tears and whisper quietly to herself, "I will not let them crush my hope." For the first time, she realized that she needed to stand up for herself rather than always succumbing to cruel orders. Ebony knew that tomorrow morning she would be sent off to the market, to be kept busy amid the stalls with vegetables, so that she wouldn't have time to properly dress up or change into decent clothes. But that initial fear was gradually giving way to resolve. Right then, huddled in the dark corner of the kitchen, Ebony contemplated every possible scenario. She pictured herself waking earlier than usual, arranging the vegetable stall as quickly as possible, or even secretly washing the one dress she had sewn herself. She even thought of the enchanted comb. Might some magic help her shine, even if only for a moment? Outside the kitchen, the night grew still, and the croaking of frogs began over the pond behind the yard. While Keisha and Tasha seemed content to grin and wait for the moment when Ebony would be humiliated, she quietly retreated to her own room. The sunset fell over Norfolk Hills in a flash, tinting the red wooden houses with brilliant shades of orange and crimson. In the cramped kitchen of Mama Bernice's home, the faint remaining light barely revealed the shadowy figures of three women huddled together, whispering their schemes. A lone candle, hastily thrust into a niche by the old hearth, flickered wildly, reflecting the simmering resentment etched on their faces. Keisha and Tasha, Mama Bernice's two favoured daughters, remained seething over the royal envoy's invitation extended to Ebony. From the moment they heard the news, their envy flared like a quiet, simmering tide, intent on drowning their half-sister. Mama Bernice herself, a tall and shrewd woman, crossed her arms and cast a steely, cold gaze into empty space, as if already plotting the next move. She didn't need to say much. A few curt nods and short remarks were enough for her daughters to grasp her intent. Keisha, with her skillfully braided jet-black hair and tightly pressed lips, shook her head in disapproval while Tasha, standing beside her, clenched her teeth and shot glances of envy every time the name Ebony was mentioned. They could not accept that a girl, long relegated to a mere servant within the household, could suddenly be personally invited by a royal envoy to attend a ball at the royal palace. Amid the heated murmurs, one voice dismissing, "Ebony must be playing tricks," another insisting, "She's only pretending to be pitiful." Mama Bernice's voice finally cut through with a heavy, imperious tone. "We must extinguish that foolish dream before it even takes root. Tomorrow morning, I'll have that little girl sent off to the market at dawn with the vegetables. She won't have any time to prepare herself or tidy up. And if, by any chance, she still manages to show up, with her soiled appearance, she will only bring further disgrace upon herself in the eyes of the prince." Keisha exchanged a venomous glance with Tasha, their sinister smiles betraying the image of Ebony stumbling about, humiliated, and being turned away from the palace gates. Their triumphant glee was unmistakable. Outside, the night swallowed the last slivers of sunlight, and the wind whistled through the gaps in the walls, its soft wail sounding like a lament for Ebony's unfortunate fate. Amid the bustling conspiracy, no one noticed the hidden corner of the kitchen. There, amidst a heap of straw gathered for firewood and bundles of corn about to be loaded onto a cart, Ebony crouched silently behind a half-open door, shrinking herself as small as possible. She listened intently to every word, her heart pounding so fiercely she feared her racing pulse might betray her presence. A wave of unease swept over her, mixed with a simmering anger. She had never imagined that one day she could stand on equal ground with Keisha and Tasha. Yet even the rare chance to set foot at the royal palace was being deliberately sabotaged. Still, her burgeoning rage was tempered by fear, for she knew that the power in the household still rested entirely with Mama Bernice. Desperate to free herself from their malicious designs, or at the very least avoid falling into their trap, she slowly reached into the frayed pocket of her worn tunic, where the enchanted comb bestowed upon her by the mermaid at the stream was safely hidden. That touch was like a spark, instantly evoking the memory of the mermaid's gentle, otherworldly gaze amid the crystalline water. Aunt Harriet's words echoed in her mind. When the current of the water gifts you the enchanted comb, the fate of a poor girl will shine forth, provided she never loses her faith. Fixing her gaze on the conspiratorial figures bathed in flickering candlelight, Ebony felt an unfamiliar surge of determination swell in her chest. This newfound hope might not be an act of heroic valor, but it was enough for her to swallow her tears and silently vow, "I will not let them extinguish my hope." For the first time, she recognized that she had to stand up for herself instead of continually succumbing to harsh orders. Ebony knew that tomorrow morning Mama Bernice intended to send her off to the market, to keep her ensnared among the vegetable stalls and unable to prepare properly or change into something presentable. Yet, that initial dread was gradually yielding to resolve. In that dark corner of the kitchen, Ebony carefully considered every possibility. She imagined rising earlier than usual, rushing to arrange the market stall as swiftly as possible, or even secretly washing the only dress she had ever sewn herself. She even thought of the enchanted comb. Could some magic help her shine, even if only for a brief moment? Outside the kitchen, the night grew calm and the croaking of frogs began near the pond at the back of the yard. While Keisha and Tasha revelled in their gloating, waiting for the moment when Ebony might be publicly shamed, she quietly retreated to her small room. Her hand remained tight. Dawn's soft glow still clung to the sky over Norfolk Hills as Ebony embarked on the first long journey of her life, trekking along undulating hills and winding her way beside meandering rivers. Ahead lay the majestic Fort Chester, with its splendid royal palace, a place she had always believed existed only in whispered legends and distant ancient tales. Mama Bernice, accompanied by Keisha and Tasha, had departed the village by carriage, leaving Ebony to trudge along on foot behind them. Though weary, she felt an unexpected lightness in her heart at finally stepping beyond the narrow world long imposed by her stepmother. The path was strange and full of surprises. After passing through a sparse forest, Ebony paused by the stream to take a sip of its clear, cool water. The shimmering surface recalled to her the enchanting figure of the mermaid she had seen that very morning, and with it came a tingling mix of curiosity and warmth, a memory that bolstered her spirit like a silent encouragement to keep moving forward. In that moment, she realized that whenever she dared to seize an opportunity, the world around her transformed into something vast and bursting with colour. After several hours of travel, at last the palace gates emerged amidst high enclosing walls, intricately carved with countless regal symbols. Ebony hesitated as she approached the gate guards. Though her worn, humble brown dress offered nothing noteworthy, her name was listed among the invitees. The courteous guards ushered her into the garden beyond, where the party was already in full swing. Rows of neatly arranged tables were adorned with fresh flowers, fruits, and an array of sweet pastries. In the background, the gentle strains of stringed instruments mingled with the aroma of fragrant herbs, creating a sense of overwhelming serenity. Choosing a discreet spot behind an ancient willow, Ebony kept to the shadows to avoid the prying eyes of the other guests. Most of them wore lavish outfits and radiant jewellery that transformed the entire garden into a glittering tableau. Yet the very opulence of it all only made Ebony feel more out of place. Clutching her bag tightly, which held the treasured enchanted comb, she recalled how, at times, she had wished never to venture here, to spare herself the embarrassment and fear. But the royal envoy's invitation still echoed in her mind, and the burning desire to explore a world beyond her humble beginnings compelled her to stay. When the loudspeaker announced that Prince Cairo had stepped forward, all the young ladies in the garden surged toward the grand staircase. From her hidden vantage, Ebony could clearly see him, tall and commanding, with deep, rich bronze skin, clad in sumptuous yet powerful attire. Pa. He greeted the assembled guests with a warm smile and a look of resolute sincerity. As his gaze swept over the crowd, it suddenly halted on Ebony, the only girl not jostling to be at the front, but rather standing apart in quiet solitude. At that moment, Ebony's heart raced. Just as she had feared, the other girls instantly displayed expressions of shock mixed with envy. In fact, a few of the high-born young ladies whispered scornfully, "Look at her. How can that shabby dress even be acceptable?" Ebony heard every word, but she bit her lip and drew a deep breath, determined to remain composed. She reminded herself that her presence was not meant for comparison. She had come by a formal invitation, and she deserved to be there regardless of her origins. Prince Cairo gently cut through the throng and advanced toward where Ebony stood. His bearing was devoid of any arrogance, radiating only calm assurance. He greeted Ebony by name and expressed genuine delight at her arrival. His kind words nearly took her breath away. She bowed her head in a trembling reply, careful not to reveal how fiercely her heart pounded. Yet his considerate manner dispelled much of her fear, and gradually she began to relax. When he inquired about her impressions of the feast, Ebony softly admitted that everything seemed dazzling and extravagant compared to the simplicity of life in her village. Cairo tilted his head and smiled encouragingly, saying, "Enjoy it in your own way. Everyone has the right to experience life without shame about where they come from." His words soothed the self-consciousness that had long plagued her, and with renewed resolve she followed him along the palace corridors. They strolled slowly, leaving behind the noisy crowd and the many astonished and, at times, envious faces. Ebony began to share stories of Norfolk hills, the cornfields, the babbling stream, and the simple beauty she cherished. Prince Cairo listened intently, nodding in empathy from time to time. At one point, with a hint of hesitance, Ebony even mentioned the encounter with the mermaid at the stream and the mysterious enchanted comb. Though she feared that confessing such a tale would invite ridicule, Cairo showed no trace of skepticism. Moonlight cascaded onto the scattered stones along the stream's edge, illuminating the slender silhouette of Ebony as she slowly made her way forward. That night, sleep eluded her. Every time she closed her eyes, she was haunted by the envious glares of Mama Bernice, the furious faces of Keisha and Tasha, and a flurry of unappealing village gossip. She wondered whether Prince Cairo truly cared for her, or if his attention was merely a fleeting whim. Each gust of the nocturnal wind, stirring her hair and sending shivers down her spine, did little to deter her determined journey toward the familiar stream beyond the hill. Turning a bend among weeping willows, she found the water gently rippling like a mirror, reflecting a dazzling silver glow. Ebony sat down at the stream's bank and retrieved the enchanted comb from her worn tunic pocket, carefully placing it in the palm of her hand. Even now its magical beauty shone with a mysterious, soft radiance in the dark night. She recalled the first time the mermaid had bestowed this treasured gift upon her, along with the heartfelt instruction to never lose her faith and purity. Yet, she couldn't have foreseen that this unexpected encounter would come to be intertwined with events that would forever alter her life. Unexpectedly, from beneath the calm surface of the water, a gentle sound emerged. A sound that resembled a dreamlike calling. Ebony lifted her gaze and recognized a familiar pair of eyes framed by warm brown skin and a sleek, dark fishtail that shimmered under the moon. The mermaid slowly surfaced, her cascade of curly hair spread out like a delicate veil, catching the subdued light to create an atmosphere both eerie and sacred. Her voice, as soft as a passing breeze, reached Ebony's ears as she spoke. The mermaid had been watching every change in her life. Ebony fought to remain calm, though her heart pounded furiously. The mermaid's words left her even more bewildered. It seemed that Ebony's own yearning to rise above her station had stirred something deep within the ethereal creature, and, more shockingly, that the mermaid's lineage was under a terrible curse. To break that curse, the mermaid explained, she must help someone with a pure heart escape a bleak destiny and find true happiness. Ebony slowly understood that the enchanted comb was not given to her by mere chance. It carried with it an important mission. It was as if the very stream beneath her feet began to rush with renewed energy, stirring in the depths of her soul emotions that defied easy description. In a trembling voice, she managed to ask whether, should she truly touch the edge of happiness, the mermaid's curse might be lifted. The subtle nod of the mysterious creature was as sharp as a blade slicing through the night, revealing an unexpected connection, that her own happiness and the liberation of the enigmatic mermaid were intertwined. The mermaid continued, saying that if Ebony could hold fast to a compassionate heart, avoiding the burden of resentment and jealousy, then the enchanted comb would forever shine bright, guiding her toward a hopeful future. But should she succumb to bitterness and hate, the magic would dwindle, leaving darkness for both of them. The warning brought tears to Ebony's eyes. In that moment, she realized the weight of both the joy and the responsibility resting upon her shoulders. It dawned on her that she was not only fighting for herself, but also for the soul of a mystical being hidden in the vast ocean. In that pivotal moment, Ebony knelt by the water's edge, clutching the comb tightly. She whispered a solemn vow not to lose herself, even if the coming day meant facing the scorn of her stepmother or encountering further scheming at the royal palace. Tears streamed down her cheeks, merging with the still night. The mermaid then reached out and gently touched her forehead, transferring a soft, pale green light that gradually faded away. The whole scene lasted only a few breathless moments, yet it was enough for Ebony to grasp that the existence of magic was real, and as delicate as it was, it held the promise of transformation. When silence eventually reclaimed the scene, Ebony searched the darkness for any last sign of her mysterious friend. The stream lay quiet. The moon's reflection remained imprinted on the water, but the mermaid had vanished into the depths. Rising to her feet, Ebony carefully stowed the enchanted comb in a safe corner of her tunic and turned to leave, her cheeks still damp with tears. Deep within her, she carved a fierce resolve to face the future with her whole heart. Many challenges awaited her the next day when she would return to the royal palace, where Prince Cairo was preparing to receive her. Mama Bernice and the two stepsisters were certain to stir up more schemes, and whispers among the villagers hinted at uncertainty over who the prince would ultimately favour. Yet tonight, amidst the serene moonlit water, Ebony had discovered the final rays of the sunset faded behind the trees, painting the Norfolk Hills sky with a vibrant tangerine glow. The celebration had continued from noon until late afternoon, filled with endless dancing and overflowing with warm wishes. Just before everyone began to disperse, Prince Cairo stepped forward to the central fountain and announced in a resounding voice, "Ladies and gentlemen of Norfolk Hills, I thank you all for being here today. I shall decide upon my future companion only when I have truly found the purest and most sincere heart." Those words filled every girl in the village with renewed hope. Keisha and Tasha, Ebony's two stepsisters, beamed with self-assured smiles, for they had always been praised by Mama Bernice as the most beautiful in the village. Mama Bernice herself couldn't hide her smug delight. Yet unexpectedly and before everyone's eyes, Prince Cairo came right up to Ebony, gently taking her hand and saying, "Ebony, I wish you would visit the royal palace again. I need to speak with you privately." A murmur of astonished whispers swept through the crowd. Ebony was utterly confused, and Mama Bernice instantly objected, insisting that the filthy girl had no right to such an honour. But Cairo cut her off in a firm tone, asserting that he was the one making the choice. The villagers stared in disbelief, while Keisha and Tasha turned red with anger. For her part, Ebony felt her hands tremble. This was the first time a person of such high station had publicly shown her protection. With moist, shining eyes, she managed a timid nod. As promised, only a few days later, royal guards arrived in the village to escort Ebony to the royal palace. Keisha and Tasha clamoured to tag along, but only Ebony's name appeared on the guest list, leaving her stepsisters helpless as they watched the escort party take her away. Curious onlookers crowded in, and though some offered congratulations, while others harboured envious glances and doubtful expressions at this utterly unexpected opportunity, everyone agreed that Ebony possessed a rare and incomparable quality. Upon reaching the gates of the royal palace, Ebony was led into a tastefully decorated room, remarkably modest and unostentatious, contrary to what she had imagined. Prince Cairo greeted her in the grand hall with a gentle smile. They sat and talked beneath curtains of hanging blossoms that evoked for Ebony the serene landscape of Norfolk Hills. With a deep, soothing tone, Cairo recounted tales from his travels across Bang Revelia, describing how he had observed people of all walks of life, both the wealthy and the impoverished. Then he spoke frankly. "Ebony, I seek a future queen who is empathetic and kind-hearted. I see that very quality in you. Will you join me in governing this land and bringing practical improvements to our people?" His words swept over Ebony like a cool, refreshing breeze, washing away the fatigue of her sorrows. Memories flooded back of a life marred by humiliation, of the enchanted comb bestowed by the mermaid, and of the perseverance instilled in her by her late father. All of these converged into this moment when Prince Cairo extended to her the most honourable proposal of her life. Overwhelmed, she burst into tears and choked out between sobs, I agree." The prince smiled, reverently taking her hands in his. Soon the news of their betrothal spread like a refreshing spring breeze throughout Bang Revelia. Many rejoiced on behalf of the humble country girl, while some scowled with envy, but all agreed that she possessed a remarkable aura that no one could match. The wedding was scheduled to take place at the Grand Cathedral of Fort Chester. Everywhere banners of royal gold and deep blue, the signature colours of the monarchy draped lavishly, making the scene more resplendent than ever before. Ebony wore a dress of her own design, adorned with shimmering beads inspired by the enchanted comb. The people flocked in droves, buzzing with excitement to witness the miraculous event. A girl once relegated to the role of servant now radiating like a princess. In that sacred moment before the floral altar, Ebony suddenly caught a glimpse of the mermaid's fleeting silhouette outside the cathedral window. The legendary creature's eyes shone with contentment, as if silently watching over and supporting the path Ebony had chosen. Then, with a gentle smile, the mermaid slipped back into the water, rekindling in Ebony a deep-seated belief that miracles were never far away. After a thunderous round of applause as they exchanged vows, Prince Cairo declared before the assembled guests that it was Ebony who had taught him that true value lay in character, love, and the strength to overcome adversity. They vowed to rule with compassion, eschewing superficial and soulless power. Although Mama Bernice, Keisha, and Tasha accepted this truth with reluctance, Ebony treated them with forgiveness, hoping that one day their family bonds might buck.